What? It's your boy. We're learning CIA, how it works? And maybe?
Jane Smith is sitting on a Lufthansa machine bound to
Oh,
Frankfurt, Germany. She empties
chill.
her second glass of red wine and fastens her seatbelt
Where's
because the
Lundy?
plane is about to land. When
No,
Jane
sorry.
exits the aircraft, she
It's your
goes
boy.
straight to customs. She shows the officer her American passport. It's black. "Why are you here?" the officer asks. "Supporting technical consultations at the consulate," Jane responds.
Whoa.
The officer stamps her passport, and she passes through.
I took a shower.
Jane grabs some euros from an ATM, takes
Yeah,
a cab to a
congrats.
nearby
I'm like, hold
hotel,
on.
and checks in.
I
You
had this
see,
thing where
Jane lied a little just now, during the customs check.
I like
She
wearing
is
the
not
same
working for a
thing,
consulate, and despite her passport,
like a
she is no
cartoon.
diplomat. Jane is a CIA agent, a hacker.
Whoa.
She is visiting a covert base of her agency, secretly set up within the American consulate in Frankfurt.
My dream is for everyone to have really sexy female CIA agents. Or if you're a woman, do you want like a guy CIA agent? That would be weird. I'd be jealous. Do you think my wife would be jealous if I had a sexy CIA agent? Fine, dude. We'll just hit the boys, I guess.
But this base,
No,
in the
dude,
heart
come
of Europe,
on.
is just
No?
one of a giant network spanning all across the globe. What are their functions? And how do these bases operate on foreign territory?
CIA's global hacking
Oh
program.
my god.
Methoden der CIA.
Dude, it's so bad. Who knows? Who cares? We need to figure it out. Whoa, dude. Fine dining.
Jane enters the hotel room and drops off her bags. She was prepared for this trip. She's been given instructions on how to get around in Frankfurt. Stores are closed on Sunday, gas stations are not a good place for fine dining, stuff like that. We all know this thanks to the extensive leaks called Vault 7 from a few years back.
Oh my lord.
Generally, this video largely relies on leaked information
Vault 7.
and statements of retired agents.
Do you believe it though?
It was a 9-hour flight from Washington, D.C. to Frankfurt. Jane is pretty exhausted and takes a shower. She is very careful not to leave anything that could identify her unattended. She takes her phone and laptop with her to the bathroom. Freshly dressed, Jane takes the U5 subway towards Pollingesheim. She gets off at Gießner Straße, just a few hundred meters north from the consulate. Frankfurt hosts the largest U.S. consulate in the world. Officially, it is serving American residents in the region, but in truth, it is doing much more than
What if
that.
they use a GTA
At the
mod
main
to-
gate, Jane shows her black passport and is handed a yellow visitor's badge. She follows the signs to the employee
They don't,
entrance
but
alongside
what if
the
they did?
consulate building on the left. Jane holds up her yellow badge at the door and is buzzed into the building by a guard. Inside the building, Jane walks through a number of corridors and through a large heavy door to Post 1. A U.S. Marine is waiting behind a glass window. Jane
we're
gives her the
in-
yellow badge, and she gets a blue one instead. Jane can finally enter her new office and get to work. She calls her person of contact and gets to know the other agents at the station.
Whoa, that's cool.
In 2013, news broke that the US spied on then German Chancellor Angela Merkel's private phone for over 10 years.
The NSA may have been spying on Chancellor Angela Merkel.
A spokesman for the German leader described the
What kind of
idea
memes?
as
I was
totally
gonna say porn
unacceptable.
first.
The operation
really.
was run by the so-called Special Collection Service, a spy unit of the NSA and CIA. Officially, it does not exist. Unofficially, it is running spy operations from almost 100 US embassies all across the world, including Frankfurt. But Jane works for another unit here. She works for the European branch of the Center for Cyber Intelligence, the CIA's hacking division. Jane and others are developing cyber weapons. There are over 1,000 hacking systems
You
and
could scroll
several
and-
hundred million lines of code
they
in the
update
CIA's
YouTube?
arsenal. Some of these hacking tools are extremely powerful. The CIA could turn devices from Apple, Google, Samsung, and many others into secret microphones.
That's
There are
cool.
tools that bypass
That-
encryption from
cool?
messengers like WhatsApp, Signal, or
Uh.
Telegram, allowing the agency to collect text and voice messages. But there are also attack systems like fine dining, which only work from up close. This is where Frankfurt's strategic location comes into play. The Schengen Agreement allows Jane to travel from Frankfurt to almost any European country without border control. If Jane wanted to penetrate high-security targets that are not connected to the internet, she could simply take a train, stick a USB drive loaded with malware into a target PC, and be back in Frankfurt by supper. Jane is a very talented hacker. If one day she decided to leave the CIA, she could have a very promising career as a cybersecurity expert. All she'd have to do is build a portfolio and launch her own website. Unfortunately, Jane is not very creative when it comes to designing. Luckily, she doesn't have to be. There is a fast, easy, and intuitive way to build a website with our sponsor Odoo. Just answer a few
Whoa.
clocks to add images with Odoo to shape of your on fern.de
Never
custom
heard of
domain
Odoo.
name at
Go
the
to
base
Odoo.
for a time now when she gets a phone call. Her superiors need her expertise at another location. She says goodbye to her colleagues, checks out of her hotel room, and buys a single malt whiskey with her remaining euros in the duty-free shop at the airport. Jane's next destination is Australia.
Maybe it's not as long of a flight though. It's like 8, maybe like 12,
Jane
10.
gets off the plane
For
and
us,
walks
it's
to
like
customs,
20,
and things do not go smoothly.
18.
One of the officers
No
seems
idea.
suspicious about her and selects Jane for secondary screening.
I want to
But
go to
she's
Australia
prepared.
so bad. Just for no reason.
Agents
Go
like
pet a
Jane
koala.
are usually trained here, Camp Peary, or how most people in the CIA call it, the farm, a roughly 10,000-acre piece of land near Williamsburg, Virginia. It was established during World War II as a military training center. Later, it was transformed into a camp for Italian and German war prisoners.
So is this
In
just another
1951, the CIA
compound?
took over and
Oh,
turned
okay.
it into a secret spy school. Of course, not
Ooh,
officially.
Kingsman.
In fact, the CIA has built an entire fake city. There are multiple houses and dormitories for students and staff. For training, the site has several shooting ranges, boathouses at the river, driving courses, and an airfield. Students learn everything they need to know about life as a secret agent in the field, from basic weapons trainings all the way to the handling of explosives, how to evade pursuers, and field surveillance. Students practice how to infiltrate a border that is tightly guarded by watchtowers and police dogs. Enemy capture is simulated by kidnapping students from their dorm and interrogating them. There is even a mock prison where students learn how to deal with solitary confinement. If training needs to be even more hardcore, students are brought to Harvey Point, just a few hours south of the farm. This is the place where, among other things, the operation to kill Osama bin Laden was planned and trained. Jane stands in front of a customs officer at the Australian airport. She remembers how to survive secondary screening. According to a CIA training manual, the two most common questions in this situation are why are you here and where are you staying? Jane learned how to maintain her cover, no matter what. When asked, Jane gives a quick and concise answer, no pause and no delaying sounds between questions and response, just as the manual says. She knows that any unnecessary information or overly specific answers might lengthen the interview, so she keeps it short and simple. She tries to stay calm, no swallowing, no lip biting, nothing that can make her seem nervous. And it works. After a few minutes, the officer hands Jane her passport and she's free to enter the country. Jane is sitting with her colleagues in a casino in Alice Springs, a small town right in the heart of the Australian outback. There are a lot of Americans all around her, which is not unusual. Most of them work at Pine Gap, a nearby military base run by the Australian and US government. Jane and others are playing a weird American dice game called Craps when a group of Australian YouTubers join them. Together they drink, they laugh, and maybe talk a bit too much about their work.
Australian YouTubers.
The Americans in this casino are no ordinary soldiers.
How is it
and
today?
Pine Gap
No.
is not your usual military
Thing
base.
I did today.
Pine Gap is a top
That
secret
was the
spy
channel,
facility.
people.
Roughly
No.
1,000 people work
Why?
at the so-called Joint Defense Facility, which is a quite misleading name, in fact. In its early years, Australians only worked as cooks, painters, or janitors, while today almost half the staff is Australian and the other half American. In reality,
I like
the
how
CIA
they have a pool.
and the NSA call the shots here. While Pine Gap was originally used as a defensive site to keep track of Soviet nuclear missiles during the Cold War, US intelligence quickly realized how useful this base could truly be. Today, it is the US's most important intelligence collection station in the world. There are 38 radar dishes all across the base. Many of them are enclosed in random, huge golf ball-like structures. They are built to hide and protect the antennas inside them. Most of these antennas communicate with US spy satellites, like Orion 3, 5, 7, and 9. These spy satellites are geosynchronous. They move in orbit with exactly the same speed as the Earth's rotation. This way the CIA can intercept almost all wireless communication from Europe, Africa, and Asia, 24/7. The immensely powerful NSA spy programs, Echelon and X-Keyscore, that Edward Snowden made public in 2013, are also operated from Pine Gap. These programs are used to systematically collect everything, from online chats to phone calls and mails. At the heart of the base sits the operations building. On a total of around 20,000 square meters, roughly the size of a small IKEA, the CIA, NSA, and other agencies analyze all incoming intelligence data. Pine
That's
Gap played a vital role
pretty
in America's war
badass,
on
dude.
terror. It provided real-time data for soldiers on the battlefield in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was used to locate targets for US drone strikes, during which hundreds of civilians were
Right.
killed. A very recent report indicates that Pine Gap intelligence may have assisted Israeli forces to attack targets in Gaza. For that reason, a group of
Oh.
protesters tried to block the entrance to Pine Gap at the end of last year. Pine Gap has been criticized by many different groups before. Some people have even managed to enter the facility. More recently,
Whoa.
these Australian
That's cool.
YouTubers, for example. Be sure to check out their video. It inspired us to make this video in the first place.
So be more hyped?
Did you hear that? It sounded like bombs going off.
No.
Jane has seen places few people in the world have ever been to.
Why?
Covert hacking bases in the heart of Europe,
That was
training
a
facilities in the
how
US,
we did
and spy
today?
stations
No.
in Australia.
We did a thing.
She knows many of the CIA's
today.
secrets, like the fact that in
don't know.
2000, an American soldier from Pine Gap reportedly started a secret swingers club in Alice Spring, which
So
held
this
wild
is Pine Gap
parties.
is in
But there are
Australia?
places that not even Jane will ever have access to. On September 6, 2006, President George
This
Bush
is-
admitted what many people had already suspected.
So I'm announcing today that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Abu Zubaydah, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, and 11 other terrorists in CIA custody have been transferred to the United States Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay.
In this speech, Bush acknowledged that the CIA was running a network
That's
of
not
secret
good.
prisons all across the world,
Oh.
so-called black sites. The most well-known CIA prison is Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. The prison was built for international terrorist suspects. Just 4 months after the attacks on 9/11, the first 20 people arrived. But Guantanamo is no regular prison. In most cases, there are no official charges, no trials, and no formal convictions. A total of 800 people were brought here.
Oh, 'cause
Some
they
have been
know
exposed to enhanced
they know,
interrogation techniques,
right? So
most
you
commonly
just
known
don't.
as torture. Often, the CIA did not have clear evidence on their inmates. The exact number and locations of black sites are still unknown. Some were run by foreign secret services. At least 10 of these prisons were built and operated by the CIA. Over 50 governments participated in some way. If the CIA suspected someone of being a terrorist, they sometimes became part of the agency's extraordinary rendition program, or simply kidnapping. The suspect was illegally shackled, blindfolded, and transported via plane to one of the CIA's black sites.
That's spooky.
Some of these prisons were allegedly planned from the CIA base in Frankfurt, while the farm was allegedly involved in rendition flights. One of the most important prisons of the CIA was here, on a Polish military base near the small village of Stare Kikute. Inside this two-story villa, the CIA built one of its very first prisons after 9/11, codename Quartz. The CIA tortured multiple suspects here. As compensation for using the place, the CIA paid at least $15 million
What are the
and
peppers?
outfitted
It
the
reminds
base
me
with
of Scooby-Doo.
$300,000 worth of security cameras. After many years of denial, in 2014, the Polish government finally admitted that it hosted the secret CIA prison. Since then, the European Court of Human Rights has found multiple European countries responsible for letting the CIA violate several human rights in prisons on their territory. In 2009, President Obama ordered for all black sites to be
Obama.
closed. But to this day, Guantanamo Bay still holds roughly 30 inmates.
What? Shouldn't. So maybe they just have separate maximum security prisons, no? Like, how does that work?